this is my shot right now. I have a hunch that t-shirts could be good. I wear them all the time. It's something I can do with my two hands. Like before this, I sold barbecue gloves on Amazon as like my first shot. Long story short, lost $5,000 and didn't sell one on Amazon.
Wait, because you ordered so much inventory and just didn't sell any?
I ordered inventory and this is truly like just a rookie mistake.
I love these.
I ordered 5,000 barbecue gloves, and I was like, oh yeah, they're like 20 cents or something, or it might've been like 10,000 actually. It was like $5,000 worth, and it was like 20 to 50 cents a barbecue glove. And I was like, oh, I can sell them at 13. But when you had to do advertising, the advertising was like $20. So just to sell one, it was going to cost me like $7, and they were shit product. And it was like, those get rich quick Amazon like tutorial videos. Mm-hmm. I got super into them, and they gave me this math formula to find products, and everything checked out, but I just didn't know the business model. So it was like, I totally blew it, but it was a good little crack with not losing too much money. Yeah. Like, hey, and I think what that lesson taught me was you got to do something you really like, one, that you have a passion for, in terms of like shirts, and that you actually like have experience with. Like I could know what a good fitting men's shirt was, but I didn't know what made a great barbecue glove. Like I don't even know how to start a barbecue. I'm not a cooker. Go there.
Boom. Cool. Let's do this. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is.
I used to prep so much and like do a full intro, and it was like so much pressure on me. And then I was like, I'll just ask you to introduce yourself, and you got it covered.
Do I need to be looking at you?
Okay. Yeah, this will all be
posted it.
Yeah.
What's going on? My name is Stephen Borrelli, the founder and CEO at Cuts Clothing, a direct-to-consumer online men's fashion brand.
We've been talking about doing this for a while. We have more mutual friends than we could probably count, and met at it's Tiana's birthday?
Tiana's birthday.
Yeah. And so we've been back and forth trying to figure out how to do this, but I'm excited to have you here, man.
Yeah, me too. I love, what you're doing, and, get to know you better. It's going to be awesome.
Appreciate it, man. So let's go back. Let's kind of just talk about like the origin story of how, you're running arguably, I think, one of the fastest growing direct-to-consumer clothing brands
in the
on the market,
space.
in the menswear space. So just what's the origin story of how you got to this place and how you created this brand? And we can start from as far back as you want.
Yeah. So I think it really started when I was working at an advertising agency in San Diego called the Lambesis Agency. And, I was 2 years out of school, and wanted to look good, but wanted to fit in with the office culture. And when I got there, everyone was wearing nice jeans, nice shoes, and an athletic type shirt to work. And it became a thing within the office of like, hey, what kind of shirt is that? And at the time, Lululemon was what a lot of the guys were wearing, but it almost seemed a little unprofessional to wear an athletic shirt with that type of outfit. And it culminated with our boss, big boss. He's a huge author, Chad Farmer, and someone was, I think one of my buddies was wearing a Lululemon shirt with the outfit, and he's like, hey, you can't wear that to work for like a pitch. And then at that point I was like, like, what, there might be something here. So then from that moment on, I started to really look at the, what are guys wearing at work? What's the storyline behind how to find a shirt? And from there, I was like, what? I think we have something.
And what year was this?
This was 2016.
In what city?
Oh no, I'm sorry. This was 2015 in San Diego.
Okay, in San Diego. And what were you doing prior to this?
I graduated 2013.
Okay.
I worked I was actually working at Nordstrom selling women's shoes.
Okay.
I did that for 2 years. Great money. You know what? One of my mentors in school was like, it started as a college job, but then I was doing so well, I kind of kept it for a year after college. And one of my college professors like, just go do sales. Like, go do sales, and you're gonna learn a lot. And so my professor Ozinski actually was a huge Nordstrom buyer, and he kind of introed me to the job, and it became something I just actually love to do. I love to talk to people, and it really taught me how to do sales. Very few jobs do you get that much practice in sales. Like every day I would talk to 20, 30 people, and talk to ladies, of skinny ladies, overweight ladies, and I had to pitch them on why these shoes were great. And every shoe was different. I knew nothing about women's shoes, but kind of had to like finesse it with each one. And it's something I really love to do. Like I think I enjoyed the satisfaction of, all right, I knew I got 10% of all my sales. That shoe was $100. I made $10 there, or I got her to buy 1,000 because I got her a handbag. It was $100, and it was a lot of fun.
Almost like a game.
Yeah.
So did your interest in apparel and fashion start there, or did it start once you got into the agency?
I always I think in college, you see a lot of guys wearing like graphic tees and like baggy jeans, and then the progression of a college student is like, they come in freshman year, know nothing how to dress, and then groupthink happens, and then by senior year, like they're looking swag. I think when I came in, I was probably already where the senior guys were, but some of my style, like I probably started in high school. I worked at Zoomies for like 4 years, so I was wearing like big LRG pants, baggy jeans, Air Force Ones.
Bringing me back.
What was some of the other brands? Crooks and Castle, like all those types of streetwear brands when that was big, and that was kind of like my first take on style, and what kind of piqued my interest.
Got it. And then, so what took you into the agency route?
I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I needed to leave Nordstrom because I kind of, even though I was making good money at the time for, a year out of school, it wasn't going to be a career path, and I needed to get other experience. And so then I jumped in at with the agency, and they had Dasani water, Tacori jewelry, and at the time I thought, my dream job is to work for these big agencies and get to work for these big brands. And I was on business development, so I did some account management for Dasani Water and Tacori Jewelry, which is a women's wear jewelry company. But I more worked on like new client business and earning accounts. And one thing I learned there that was amazing was true, and it's so much reflected in cuts today, is simpleness. Like Chad Farmer is an innovator. He in the Tipping Point, I think it's chapter 7 or 8, he was the man, him and Nick Lambesis were behind the Airwalk experiment. And if you read that book, it's such a good book for anyone graduating school. It talks about like what influencer marketing was before it was called influencer marketing. And I just really got to learn from great minds there. Although I was making literally nothing, I took like a $70K pay cut to work there. It was just, I learned like, they would get mad at me if there was a bad white space, so everything had to be perfectly spaced, and like from a branding aspect, true creative and simple design, but how like the importance of one word can make or break a presentation. I was really grateful for that period of time in the agency world.
Got it. And so you're in the agency, you have this kind of epiphany of seeing what trends are changing. Mm-hmm. What was the next step? What'd you do to start this thing?
So when I was working there, I always knew, hey, I'm going to have this itch to start my own business one day. My dad has a small business that sells produce, and I just saw he could coach me in sports. True middle class growing up, and I really enjoyed that. I had always what I needed, and my dad was always around, and we have such a good relationship. And so I wanted that, but I knew if I maybe went the traditional route, that I may never be able to coach basketball. That was a huge motivation for me to want to start my business. And at the same time, e-commerce was starting to get hot. 2013, 2014, 2015 you were seeing the Caspers of the world, the Allbirds, Movement watches was just getting started. And I was lucky enough to be college roommates with some of the Movement guys. And, I think their business was around like 10 or 15 million at the time. And so they were from a college student, we're like, holy crap, that's so much money. Like how did they do this? So, between knowing people in e-commerce and, getting my crack at the branding world, I was like, you know what? This is my shot right now. I have a hunch that t-shirts could be good. I wear them all the time. It's something I can do with my two hands. Like before this, I sold barbecue gloves on Amazon as like my first shot. Long story short, lost $5,000 and didn't sell one on Amazon.
Wait, because you ordered so much inventory and just didn't sell any?
I ordered inventory and this is truly like just a rookie mistake.
I love these.
I ordered 5,000 barbecue gloves, and I was like, oh yeah, they're like 20 cents or something, or it might have been like 10,000 actually. It was like $5,000 worth, and it was like 20 to 50 cents a barbecue glove, and I was like, oh, I can sell them at 13. But when you had to do advertising, the advertising was like $20. So just to sell one, it was going to cost me like $7, and they were shit product. And it was like, you know, those get rich quick Amazon like tutorial videos. I got super into them, and they're like, they gave me this math formula to find products, and everything checked out. But I just didn't know the business model. So it was like, I totally blew it, but it was a good little crack with not losing too much money. Like, hey, and I think what that lesson taught me was you got to do something you really like, one, you know, that you have a passion for, in terms of like shirts, and that you actually like have experience with. Like I could know what a good fitting men's shirt was, but I didn't know what made a great barbecue glove. Like I don't even know how to start a barbecue. I'm not a cooker. Like I eat out a lot. Like that was so far from like who I am. So that was just a little lesson I learned.
I like it. So what was the process of getting started after this barbecue? Like looking at t-shirts, how'd you find manufacturers? How'd you find partners? Like how did this all come to be?
So I'm at 2015. I moved from San Diego to back in with my parents, and the only way I knew how to go is I needed time, which I hadn't done working a full-time job, and I needed to save money.
Before you go into that, did everyone at your company like freak out? Like, what are you doing? Or did you tell anyone?
Yeah, I left Lambesis, and then I tried to work like a side job in San Diego and maybe try to start it that way, but I just wasn't making any money, and I had to pay rent. And so, but between like, it just wasn't a time saver. But when I remember telling my friends like, hey, I'm moving home, and I didn't tell anyone what I was going to do yet, but everyone's like, you know, I had so many friends in San Diego, and the few people I did tell the idea about, they're like, you're moving home to start a t-shirt brand. Like, are you sure about that? You're going to name it Cuts. It sounds like a steakhouse or like a hair cutting place.
Your barbecue gloves.
My barbecue gloves. Yeah. You know, so even my parents, who are super supportive, they were, you know, questioning it. You know, didn't have a girlfriend at the time. And so, you know, like those are things as a guy you think about. Like I'm 25 and a half, 25, 26 to 28. Like it's like your prime, you know, is what they say, you know, and Wenatchee, Washington, where I moved home to, is like a population of like 60,000. I have great friends there and great people, but for a young guy like that loves being in a city, it's a huge step back. Yeah. So I moved home to Washington, moving with my parents. My dad gave me a job, you know, not making a ton of money, but at least I could start saving, and I didn't have to pay rent. So everything that I saved went into, you know, building Cuts. And I really did that for 2 years, and, you know, made trips overseas, back and forth to LA, and really just try to learn the garment business at the same time learning e-com. So it was kind of a juggle. But those 2 years at home were so big because it was almost like a startup incubator. My mom cooked all meals for me, right? So my dad gave me a job.
Good Italian meals, right?
Good Italian meals, good Cuban. My mom makes great Cuban meals. And, you know, my dad like kind of funded the business in terms of, he gave me a job to make money. And I didn't have many friends. So like my whole focus, like from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. really was Cuts. Like, you know, my parents used to get mad at me that I didn't go on dates or anything like that. And I really just focused on it for 2 years.
And where did you start? Was it just Google, or did you have any connections like with, you know, anyone in the garment industry at the time, or anyone to bounce ideas off of?
That was actually the hardest part. I mean, I didn't even know what a pattern maker was. Like I was typing how to make a shirt company, and like it was like screen printing. I was like, no, I want to make actually the garment. That word, to find pattern maker, took me 2 months just to learn that word. So I think there were so many roadblocks in like the start, because it was just so hard to, like, just the language. And then when you talk to these manufacturers, they're like, all right, you got to do 10,000 units or we don't even talk to you. So I actually had to like finesse that. And I created like a fake website and then would send that to them with like other people's shirts and stuff that were, you know, like it was like a brand. So it could at least get me in the door. And then I would say, yeah, I'm doing like, you know, 10,000 units. Like I just need a couple samples, because literally people would laugh me out of the production facility. And that whole first year being home, trying to like fight the fight in and out of LA. One time I flew all the way to LA, and this guy's like, oh yeah, your samples are done. I get to the factory and the guy's like, what brand? And he literally like, he just was on the phone. Yeah. And me. And then I got there and he was like, oh yeah, like we don't even have your fabric. It's not even here. Like, and so that it was a daily battle. And I only think I would have gotten through that scenario. I was so desperate being home and like wanting to live on my own again and make this work and not be the guy that moved home to start a t-shirt brand that failed. Like that, I went to bed every night. Like, you're 26, you're just this idea and you're starting a t-shirt brand. Like that was my reality.
How much doubt was going through your head through those first 2 years?
I mean, it was every single day. Like, you almost have to have blind faith. Like one of my buddies, Nick Weta, is starting another clothing business, and he just launched his Kickstarter, and he calls me all the time, and I'm like, hey man, you just got to develop like blind faith. Like this is going to work out, because everything that you're seeing right now is going to be like, it's going to tell you like you shouldn't do this. But you got to know, like, hey, you got to keep pushing forward. And one of the big things to help me, though, after we finally got samples live and, you know, we found the right fabric, was I partnered with not a co-founder, but he was the first person that I brought on. His name is Carter Shea. And he was kind of similar situation like me. He had been working at PwC, which is an accounting firm. And me and him were talking friends. We would work out. We were buddies in high school, but then, you know, almost 8 years went by before, you know, where we didn't really talk every day. And he, after the Kickstarter, he goes, hey, I want to help you, and I believe in this. This is going to be big. And I think what that taught me was you don't need like the whole world to believe in you, but if you put yourself out there, the right guy is going to come along and give you, because I probably at that point needed just like one person to say, hey, Steven.
Just like, a little push.
Just a little momentum.
Yeah.
And him believing me, putting a little money into the business and saying, hey, and being the right partner. Like he was an accountant by trade. He got his master's, and with me and him, we were the perfect opposites to start a business. So it was good.
And you did do a Kickstarter, right?
We did do a Kickstarter.
At what point was that in the business?
That was the end of year 0, I call it, but end of year 1 of working on it.
Okay.
But
that was the launch. No one had the clothes on their back or anything.
Yep.
Completely launched with a Kickstarter.
Completely launched with a Kickstarter.
And how the Kickstarter did?
We did 40,000 in sales. I remember the day we launched, I was walking around my parents' pool, and I went to push the button and I blacked out. I legitimately blacked out. I was so nervous because like this is my baby going world, and it might get 0 sales. Like I was literally like sweating.
Did you do the whole Kickstarter campaign on your own?
On my own, yeah.
Okay, all right.
And that was, I mean, that was a battle in itself, because I spent $10,000 on this video that we couldn't even use because it was dog shit. Who now works in our business, Brennan. He was one of my buddies, and I showed him the video, and he was like, dude, this sucks. So me and him found, one of our buddies that we worked with, and we were like, hey, let's just run and gun this. It's Labor Day weekend in San Diego. Let's give all the samples you have left, which is only 50, to all of our buddies, bring them downtown San Diego, and just let's make a video. And we made the video, and it crushed. So it was literally, and that video like really did hype up the brand, which was cool. Okay.
So Kickstarter goes, and then what are the next milestones of the business? Like, where were you like, oh, like we actually have something here. This is moving. We got more momentum.
Well, after the Kickstarter, we raised 40,000, but we needed 120,000 to fulfill the PO, because the way the SKUs were, like another thing, minimum quantities, like, you know, that game. And it was just we were just rookies. We had no clue what we were doing. the factory that we were working with screwed me out of like 5,000 units. They pretty much were overworking with me because I had way too many SKUs for like a 4,000 unit PO. And they're like, we shipped those to you. And we're like, you didn't ship them to our DC. Didn't said, and it was my word versus his. And it was kind of at this point, I just had to say, you know what, I'm going to take the loss on those. And it forced me to go to this other factory, which was really, I think this was not a cash milestone, but if we got in a factory that really,
it's a good turning point.
Yeah. They could produce our goods. But then we launched, the campaign ended in November. We didn't really sell on our Kickstarter, on our website until September of 2017. So it took like 8 months to really get our units made, fulfill the orders, and set up like shipping, like the little things like the UPC codes, the logo on the website, the returns, like there's a million little nooks and crannies that just take forever. And then when you don't know how to do it, it takes even longer. But the first milestone, we were spending $50 a day on Facebook. And the first day we made $100. And I'll never forget, I remember showing my dad, it's like, we got 2 sales here. And then at that time we had a good little team. It was Carter running finances, Sean running operations, who was working at Boeing at the time, Brennan, who was working at Wasserman, which is a marketing agency in San Diego, and then Carter doing finances and me doing like kind of everything else. And we just we call it the next year and a half was like the remote years, where the 4 of us weren't taking any money from the business and just
I was going to say, was everyone working for free?
Everyone was working for free. I think a few of them ended up working from like $500 a month to $1,000, but pretty much free. And we did that for about 2 years. 2 years.
And then what changed?
Well, then we just really just understood how to be profitable with the dollar. We haven't taken any venture money and just been growing $1 at a time. And every month's PO was double the size of the one that we did previously. And Black Friday in 2018 was big. And then that kind of set us up to start 2019, where the lights we were kind of past the point of the lights coming on or not. We had a proven like success of how to scale. And then we just kept taking bigger bets. And then we were, I went to China 6 times in between middle of 2018 and 2019. We got really good terms with our factory, so they pretty much financed our business. And then cost of good went down, and then we just started making
things started clicking. Got it. Okay. And so where are we at today, employee wise and number of SKUs? We
have 12 employees. Probably hiring about 6 more, like in the next quarter, Q2. I think we've really focused on just doing one thing really great. A lot of people want to do like a million things under the sun. You see brands do tons of different SKUs, and for us, with the name Cuts, we make shirts, and we want to be known as the best shirt brand for the tech guy in the world. And we just want to do one thing great. And I think the power of our simplicity is how we're getting most of our customers, because it's really easy to understand when you see the ads. There's not a whole lot going on. There's not confusion. If trust, we're the shirt company in America right now, and I think we'll continue to do that.
And how are people finding out about you mostly? Is it the Facebook ads? Is it influencer marketing? What are you concentrating efforts on now?
It started out mainly Facebook and Instagram, but influencers become a huge part of our business. And yeah, we do a lot of different things. Like we do office sends, where we send shirts to big corporations, and then it's spinballs from there. DMs, I can't stress how important DMs are. Like we have 4 people just doing DMs every day. Like today we had this TikToker that has 6 million followers just hit us back, and he's doing a video for free, and it's like he said he could charge thousands of dollars for that, but he just loved the shirts and wants a monthly package a week. So if you have a great product, DMs and you can really reach a ton of people.
Well, it's also and that's where I think a lot of big well, go ahead.
My question for you is, you're in the influencer space. Like, what is like a good outreach from a brand that you would like to see?
So it's fun. Are you talking from actually like the influencer side or from a company side reaching out to an influencer?
From you being the influencer.
So
If a company,
I really only work with brands that I either like or have some interest in. So like when I first came off Bachelor in Paradise, it was like not floodgates, but there were, I mean, teeth whitening strips, all the like, you know, Chach and all the stuff that everyone's promoting. And I literally was like, well, I have my own business. So why would I take time away and like kind of decredit my personal brand when I have something of my own I could promote for long term, not just the single check, right? So I was very meticulous. So I'm a little different in that sense. But what I started doing was, I think every company I work with, I've actually reached out to.
Wow.
And because it was either I like them or had like, hey, I'd like to try this, or hey, I've been using this for a year. Let me know if you guys want to do anything together, because I'm happy to promote you, because it's literally what I'm using.
That's very cool.
And so for me, that's how I've approached it. When I get reached out to by companies, I mean, that's the filter, is like, cool, would I use the product, right? And then if it doesn't pass that first test, then no matter how big, dude, I've turned down like alcohol ones, and it was like a beer company reached out to me, legitimately the biggest single pay for a post I've been offered. And I literally was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, I don't drink beer. Like, I don't. I could, and I was like thinking of ways, hard as I could, to be like, how can I take an organic picture? And I'm like, I should be lying to myself. You know, like, this is stupid. So I turned it down. I just dropped, like, thank you, but no thank you. Not interested. It's not part of my brand. Like, here I am out, I'm swimming every day. I'm running. I'm showing my products, my supplements, nutrition. And then like, oh, hey, buy this beer.
That wouldn't go. Yeah. That
so that's kind of but I think I'm different in that sense. But yeah, I think the personal connection is it, right? When you look at these big companies now that are like, oh shit, like it's, I talked about this with a couple of other founders. It's death by 1,000 cuts to these big companies, right? Like, there's so many direct consumer brands that are just, they're not on their radar, but they're definitely taking away, and they're going to be on their radar soon. And they're doing these personal touches that these big brands, if they are like, oh, I want to get an influencer space, they're looking for efficiencies of how do we do this on a big scale? We're going to take our multi-million-dollar ad budget, siphon off some of this, figure out what to do with it. There's no connection. There's no personal touch. It's, here's our national brand campaign, have an influencer post about it. And I look at, like, because I know what some of these people are getting paid, and I look at the ads they're creating, and like, the influencers know, like, there's no return. But yeah, it's these big companies that don't care, and they're not checking the results. I mean, you can look at someone's insights, but that doesn't show what, and if you don't have a coupon code attached, if you don't have any way to track, then it's, for that big company, it's just branding.
I know, I see some big deals that, because we work with influencers, and they'll tell us some of the deals, and I'm like,
crazy.
It's like, just they're throwing money out. They're throwing money out.
But they're just figuring. I mean, think about it. When you run a TV ad, there's no way to see what your return on investment is. So they look at it the same way. So if you're doing the personal touches and you're DMing, like, and that's how I get a lot of people, like, just going on, and I do it through the company, I'll do it through my personal, and I think my personal is sometimes more effective, because like, listen, here's my brand, I'd love for you to try it. If you love it, and I take the same approach of, if I was reaching out, I literally just say, if you love it, great, let's talk about doing something together. If you don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And that's what creates the best partnerships. Yeah, for sure. So, but yeah, that's kind of the current state on influencer marketing from my standpoint, but it's changing.
Yeah. I think the market of the direct to consumers is, if you look at 2013 to 2017, you could almost sell like you could sell snake oil, it was going to work. But now it really falls back on the product. I think it's still highly effective if you have a great product. But if you don't, then, I know people that do fake cell phone battery cases. This guy I met in Florida sold like essentially fake cell phone, like the batteries for your cell phone.
Yep.
And he made like $20 million because like everyone has a phone.
Yeah.
And then Facebook shut him down, and that was kind of that era of.
There's a lot of bad players.
A lot of bad players. Yeah.
And it was like the era of the long sales letters and all that. And I think too, the thing about influencers is 4 years ago, it was like land grab. Let's take as much money as we can. Now it's like, oh, like this is a long-term game. Like, I don't want to like tarnish my brand over promoting someone else's, right? So I think influencers are getting smarter about it. And I think that's kind of changing the game too, of like I'm getting asked questions, which rightfully so, that I never would have got asked a year or two ago, right? Of like how, because their followers want to see vegan products, or they want to see cruelty-free, and all these things. So the check isn't the same as what it used to be. People aren't just taking money to take money. So, but yeah, it's been interesting to see the changes for sure. So looking forward, what's next for Cuts?
We're 3 years now just doing the basic shirt. For us, we do want to, now that we think we're the leaders in this space and have grown 400% year over year, is I think get into crew sweatshirts, hoodies. We want to dominate the top of your body first for the tech professional. We see that as a macro trend. Me and you are a coffee shop baller. We're doing a podcast at 7:50 at night. This is very common for this type of male, and we want to really be his everything from the top first. So you'll see our second product come out here in May, and really just build the team out. I think this year's been so fun. Every phase of the business been, the first phase was like figure it out. The second phase with the small team was just get everything done and just learn as much as you can. Now it's very much investing back into the business, and I'm not necessarily doing in the weeds as much anymore, but it's the business is challenging me in ways that I would have never thought of learning.
Yeah.
And I feel so fortunate and so blessed to be able to go through and learn leadership this way, because I don't think there's another way to do this unless you're actually leading people. And
figuring it out as you go, right?
And figuring out as you go. And just the relationships you make, and, like me and you sitting here, like it wouldn't have been possible without, having Cuts. And I made so many good relationships that are going to be lifelong friends. And, my girlfriend's like, you're always out with people, you're always doing something. You're so busy. And I was telling her on the way here, I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is what 4 years ago, I wanted to do. I was that kid that listened to Gary Vee every single day. And the funny part is, on Tuesday of this week,
I saw that one of your ambassadors was on his video.
Yeah. And it was just kind of
So for those who don't know, obviously I think everyone knows Gary, but it was basically, what was it? It was just a random video he was filming?
Yeah, random video. Gary was in a coffee shop, and he was interviewing some 20-year-old kid, and I think we have like 100 to 200 micro ambassadors that we just either give a discount or free product each month's new, and they just tag us, and they're like our warriors. They comment on ads for us. They do a bunch of little hacks for us. And one of our ambassadors was getting interviewed by Gary, and then goes, I took your advice, and I DM'd this clothing brand called Cuts Clothing, and now I'm an ambassador for him. And he was he was proud,
pumped, and
you could tell he was priming to say that.
Yeah.
And to say he was proud to work for Cuts, and that was just like a full circle thing. Like we took the advice Gary told us of how to start a business: don't take money, be profitable with $1, grind, work from home, move home. Like, we did exactly what he told us to do. We did it, and then to some kid kind of do it back to us. Full circle. Was pretty cool.
So what are some? We were walking around. So we're in our WeWork offices in El Segundo, and you started in a WeWork.
Yep.
And then you obviously moved, and the company's been growing. But what are those like? Was there any points where you look back now and are like, holy shit, like this, we've done it? Like, is there any, like, when you look back, was it moving to a new office, hiring a certain employee, hitting a certain dollar? Like, what were those like kind of key moments that were like gave you that launching pad momentum?
I think there was a few. I think the first one was like our first $1 million in sales was like the first one. Like, that was like, all right, we could create something from nothing that sold like $1 million. Right? I think that was a big one. Even before that, maybe just getting in WeWork was huge. Me getting to have enough money to just pay my bills, to work in an office like this. I mean, we were talking about when I walked in here at WeWork, and just the ability to go get a free coffee and see what all the other entrepreneurs are doing. I mean, I still miss it. It's been about a year since we were in a WeWork, And it was, I think I knew it kind of when I was in it. It was like the true entrepreneur vibe spirit. I mean, it was so fun. I would go to lunch every day with someone new, learn from someone, every day there was a new challenge, and we work so cool. Like, I know the news has been bad, but I still think it's like one of the best ways to culminate an idea, and you need to be around people like like yourself.
Yeah,
and
no, I think
it motivates you.
I think it's huge. I think the more you connect with people, the more you start. I mean, it's like anything else, right? You're just elevating yourself. When people around you are doing bigger and better things, then that's just going to lift you up to do the same. So yeah, I think it's a great concept and way to kind of get going. So I mean, when you look back now on everything you've done with Cuts, everything you have coming up, what are like the biggest takeaways if someone's listening that wants to start a clothing brand, wants to start at any company? Like, what's your biggest takeaways from like these last 3 years of what you've been able to do?
I have three, and I'll kind of go over them. One is if you're thinking of idea, and I remember I was in this phase for a while. Like, I know I want to do something, but I don't know what it is. I think the first one is start with something that, don't overcomplicate it. Start with something that you can physically do with your two hands. Like, I remember I wanted to create this app idea, but I'm not an app developer, and I know nothing about that world. Try to start with something that you actually could like go from one point A to point B in, that, or you'd have the skills to learn how to figure it out. I think it's so important. Like, have a little bit of practicality in what your dream is. And I think sometimes in our climate now, it's like, I want to, save the world and all of this, and it's not really like, it's not actionable.
It's not tangible.
It's not tangible.
Yeah.
Not tangible.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. And then the second thing is, when you're building out your team, it's so important to find people that do different things than you. Carter, when he came into the business, even to this day, he's so much different than me. He's an accounting guy, and he calms me down when I'm high energy. I'm nervous. We have in e-commerce, you'll have days you think you're rich, and then the next day you've lost it all. And so having someone to kind of keep me level has been big. And then the third thing is, don't be afraid to try something new. I know that that may be a little cliche, but I didn't know e-commerce, and I didn't know like manufacturing, but I was able to figure it out, and and I went for it.
And what gave you that sense to figure it out? What gave you that like mentality?
I think growing up, my dad, just seeing how hard he worked, and giving me strength to go for things was big. Obviously, I know Brandon's last podcast, but Kobe was a big inspiration for me too. I was a big basketball fan growing up, and and I think I did have passions. Like, I remember waking up for basketball. I didn't play my freshman and sophomore year because I had big feet when I was little, and I had really bad plantar fasciitis where I couldn't run. I had like size 11 feet when I was like 5 foot. So my body was kind of growing weird. And then my junior year, I remember being like, I got to make the varsity team. I only have 2 years, and I worked grinded, and that was my whole world. But I think when you're like growing up and it's just, you need passions. Like that's my one fear for the younger generation, with so much media and so much attention that you can always just be entertained. I think the thing that it can maybe hurt the most is like developing passions, and you have to like to do things. You need to find something that you're into. And you just need to do it. Like, you need to have a good palate for things. When I was in college, one of my buddies was like, Steven, you never try any food. Your palate is really weak. You need to try more things. And I think that's such a good analogy for like how to get started in business. If you don't know what to do, go try a bunch of things. Yeah. Like swing and miss, get a palette for types of business. And, I was really blessed to have e-commerce in my back pocket, almost by accident, with some of my friends and their brands. And it really gave me a palette for like what's possible. Even one meeting, like with yourself, if a young kid came in here and wanted to learn about your history of opening stores and doing podcasts, like he could learn so much from you just from one conversation. And I think like the winners and losers in life are the ones who just try and are curious. I think that's been big for me, is just even to this day, I think that's what makes a CEO a CEO is, you hire people to figure out the X's and O's and what you lack. And then once those people are hired, what keeps the business going forward is being curious to saying, all right, like, Brandon, what are you doing in Liquid IV that maybe we're not doing? Oh, I see this brand that sells women's clothes, like they're crushing, like we got to figure out what they're doing. And always just having that, like, all right, spirit of trying to figure out what you don't know. I think that's where my head's at right now. I'm kind of going on a tangent.
No, you're good.
Learning what you don't know is, and understanding how much you really have no clue is so powerful for a young founder or a young CEO to really understand, because it unlocks all this potential of you being curious and continue to push your business forward.
It's funny because I look back at like on all the podcasts we've done, all the CEOs we've had on, and it's such a common theme of like, when you look in from the outside, you see a company like Cuts or you see a company like Liquid IV, and it's like, man, these guys got it together. Like every branding's on point, website looks great, people are out there promoting it, and you forget that. And the common theme is like everyone started out not knowing anything, and like if you knew, you probably wouldn't have started. If you knew how hard it was, if you knew what it was going to take, if you knew the late nights, if you knew the debt, if you knew all these things, right, you probably wouldn't have started. And like the ignorance of not knowing and like figuring it out is like such a common theme. And I think that's that one line is what holds so many people back that have ideas, or that, they're just like, well, I don't know where to start, so I can never do this. And then doubt starts setting in, and then they never cross that line of just like tasting it. Yep. Just figuring it out. Because if one person did it, anyone else can. Like the amount of people I think I've met that really didn't know what they were doing in the beginning, like, and still some are like figuring out as they go, right? Like,
I mean, every day we're TikTok
comes out, figure it out. Like you got it, it's a new platform, you got to figure it out, right? And you guys are reaching out to, so it's funny to me it's the reason why most people don't start, and it's the reason why most people succeed. So like it's the same thing. It's that same line.
And I think I'm kind of repeating what Brandon said on his speech, but sometimes when you're right at that point of like not knowing is your greatest opportunity. Like for us, like a lot of people, including the CEO of Pure Vita, Griff, and Blake Pinsker, who I was really good friends with when I started, they said, hey, because they all did one size fits all brands. And I remember early on, I had zero revenue. It was just an idea. I was like, what do you think about this? And they go, I don't really see it. Like, guys, it's not one size fits all. Returns are going to be a bitch. Like, no one's going to buy a $50 shirt online. And now it's our greatest asset because we can afford a high CPA on the price side. And then on the one side,
cost per acquisition.
Cost per acquisition.
Don't know. No, you're good. You're good.
And then on the LTV side, lifetime value, we're like, there couldn't be a better product to have online for in clothing, because once you get hooked, you get in. Like out of those brands, Cuts has the highest lifespan of a customer. And so, but I didn't know that at the time. I just was like, I'm going to make this work. And then it turned into our greatest asset as a business is getting people to buy 4, 5, and 6 shirts, and figuring out the one size fits all issue.
Yeah. So what to finish on, we talked about how looking back at like the early days and how fun it was and how scrappy it was. Like, what gets you up every morning now?
I really do look upon that experience that I had to get me through all the new challenges, and I have so much more confidence now, and like, I'm gonna figure it out. I think in the early days you have no confidence, but you're using blind faith. Now I was like, we climbed mountains, and we got this huge mountain in front of us, but we're going to use that experience to get over that. And I think just creating opportunity for people. Like, I think in the society that we're in, not enough gets made for entrepreneurs, or that are like, we have 12 people that get to come to work from starting from nothing. I take a lot of joy in creating those opportunities for our team. And sometimes, my dad, I forget that's actually what we're doing. And, he's like, Steven, like, he was in the office for the first time last week. And, for him, he's really saw it from when it was in, not a brand to now.
In his living room.
In his living room. And, me like in tears because I couldn't work with, big retailers. And he was like, he's like, I want to write a book. This is crazy. He can't believe that we were able to get to this point. But I think what fires me up most is I look at big companies like Nike and Adidas and Lulu. Like, I want to have like an epic campus, like a photo, like a big, a photo studio, like a golf simulator. Like, we want to get, now we have more resources to really have real innovation in our next product lines, and to be at the most innovative space for, we're really focused on trying to figure out how to make products sustainable. And that's a big initiative for us. And like, what does sustainability look like? Does it mean biodegradable? Does it mean it lasts like years and years, where the quality is just going to be so good you're not going to need new clothes? So there's kind of two ends of the spectrum. And just really, I look at Phil Knight. I want to be that. I want to have that success that he had.
That's amazing. How do people find you?
Cutsclothing.com. And at Cuts Clothing on Instagram, and at Cuts TikTok, and at Cuts Clothing on Twitter.
I love it. You're the first guest to throw out TikTok handle, right?
TikTokers. I mean, like Gary Vee says, it's next, and it's for real.
You can't ignore it.
Their headquarters is literally next door to my house.
Really?
For 4 years, or for 2 years since I've been in LA, I saw this building go up, and I'm like, and then I reached out. I was like, hey, I would love to. It's right across the street. I would love to get in there. It's about as big as this building. And then last week, I see a TikTok site go up, and I'm like, it is huge, and it's so sick. It's got like all the lights, sure. And yeah, it's going to be another battle.
What's next?
We have 12 videos on TikTok. We're still learning. But.
All right. I love it, man. Dude, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
It's, I think we're the only people here, so we'll close down the shop.
Love it.
Thanks so much, man.